Hello, everybody. My name is Fengling Tang. I'm working at the University of Roehampton, London, UK. I would like to thank Ms. Joanne Lee's invitation for me to present my research as keynote for the 2025 conference. The title of my presentation is Impact of Research Teaching Regime on Academic Identities in UK Higher Education. This research paper is constructed in the context of neoliberalism as dominant practice in HE, argued by many scholars. All observe here that education policy has been formed within the context of the pressures and necessities of globalization by the political rationality, which is commonly acknowledged as key features of neoliberalism. Impacts of neoliberalism in education have been discussed and debated by researchers. For example, Stuart Nelson points out that culture of accountability and performativity have caused lost sight of the learner in arts education. Osgood discusses the neoliberal regulations constrained the early years profession by demand for technist practice in the name of social engineering. I use autoethnographic approach and a critical literature review to construct my thoughts for this research paper. Autoethnography is considered as an important part of narrative inquiry approach to research, drawing on individual experience to understand and give meaning to our lives through stories and narrative, argued by Traher 2009. The autoethnographic approach challenges conventional ways of doing research and address research as a socially, politically constructed act, as argued by Alice Adams and Bochner 2011. Autoethnography is a powerful tool as individual stories illuminate the collective effects of discursive processes in which individuals' symbolic and narrative struggles alongside a sense of fulfillment and inspiration come alive, as argued by Mercer 2017, alongside myself and Corrado 2024. The research question here to guide my thinking throughout the paper: what does it mean to be an academic in HE institutions? In what way academic identities have been shaped and reshaped by the neoliberal request focusing on research and teaching? How will the space be nurtured for academics to maintain and sustain passion and hope for HE pedagogy and research? Ethical considerations here refer to academic integrity and professionalism in the way I share my experiences and perspectives. It is not about personal attacks or criticisms of HE institutions or the so-called neoliberalism, but it is my efforts and passion to pursue potential solutions, or if no solution at all, I strongly hope for the perceived implication for HE research and pedagogy in the long run. Purpose of higher education, purpose of teaching, and purpose of research have never been easy questions. The pros and cons of the business or market-oriented changes in HE are still very much debatable, as argued by many researchers listed here. Roehampton 2024 observes that research teaching new sex is embedded in many universities, including research-intensive universities and applied universities across international contexts, to fulfill the university's multiple societal responsibilities. It is observed that the research excellence framework and teaching excellence framework as key part of the neoliberal mechanism to monitor HE institutions, by which in turn the HE institutions regulate academic staff. This was even more so during the recent economic downturn, as HE institutions make decisions about academic restructuring processes. The so-called flexible working scheme were implemented since the COVID-19 pandemic, including the pay reduction, voluntary and enforced redundancies. The research teaching requirements as part of the neoliberal pressures have intensified with negative impacts on academics, especially those with ethnic minority backgrounds, as argued by Gabriel 2010 and Wilson 2017. This is especially so post the COVID-19 pandemic, with the accelerated changes as a result of economic recession and political unrest across the globe, as are argued 2025. Jerux argue that educators have to revitalize the struggles to create conditions in which learning would be linked to social change as consequences of a neoliberal attack on academic public life. As noted by Universities UK, the hugely challenging economic circumstances have led to measures that the sector reduce costs, increase efficiency, and moderate certain behaviors in order to increase stability and sustainability. We can say, as what Raman and Magnus call cracks in the ivory tower, the moral mass of higher education. The ivory tower is in crisis. This is part of my autoethnographic reflection from now on. At the center of the autoethnography is the importance of reflection as a mental and emotional activity of human beings, and as a crucial intellectual practice in research, as argued by Mohtari here. Reflection enables people to engage in thoughtful relationship with the world and gain an informed stance about lived experiences. Radek and Corrado argue for the importance of dialogic process and space to enable shared lived experiences and enable deeper thinking. I constantly reflect on the impact of research teaching new sex in HE on academics. When I first started my working in HE in the UK since 2007, every academic staff got about 300 hours for research and 150 hours for scholarly activities alongside teaching workload, which sounded a balanced approach to maintain teaching and research. Gradually, research time was not given but had to be earned. First, by linking to 3-star publication, then by applying for research time based on research planning to demonstrate capacity to carry out research, focusing on research output, then a division between professional development and research time allocation, and to the most recently, intensive planning focusing on research and knowledge exchange, but with heavy emphasis on quantity of BD rather than quality of research or value of research in my experience. As an individual, I have gone through those changes and was confused, lost, and I'm still confused and lost ever since. Certain research is prioritized more than others, as perceived by the HE institution research regulatory system. Teaching at institutional level had been narrowly framed by employability focus rather than broader reason and wider inspiration for student learners in HE, as argued by Tang and Corrado 2022. Mid-term module evaluation and end-of-term module evaluation alongside national student survey for final year students are currently controlled mechanisms to monitor teaching. In some cases, as a result of module evaluation, academic staff were required to develop action plans to meet evaluation results in the name of supporting students' learning experience and enhance the quality of teaching. So what I'm researching for, what I'm teaching for, do these regulations reflect the essence of research and teaching? Do I need my research and teaching be recognized and fit into these regulatory frameworks? Is it worth fitting into these teaching and research requirements at the cost of constraining our academic passion about the value of our teaching and research? What shall we do with this neoliberal requirement? Some colleagues have to choose. I'm not begging for time or money, but I know what I'm doing for research and teaching. Here comes the image of an academic in the constant struggle of meeting institutional requirements of both research and teaching, with academic freedom fading away further and further in the background. This is what I have experienced in the context of neoliberal pressures, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. The neoliberal machine is a metaphor I use to refer to the HE regulatory process and system in responding to the pandemic, with the result of top-down approaches on academics and professional services, as argued by Tang 2023 and Tang and Corrado 2024. The writing in the middle here was my reflection facing the sudden call from university about the use of Zoom for teaching and supporting students. I wasn't ready for this technicity at the time, and I was longing for humanly approach in relation to supporting both students and staff health, well-being, and some other concerns. So the writing on the right was my reflection on the academic restructuring processes happened very shortly after the reopening of the nation in England at the time. We were asked to choose at a very short notice between voluntary redundancy or applying for the job, which many of us have been doing over a decade. The poem is about the two princes during the Three Kingdoms in ancient China around 200 BC. The old brother, as the king, ordered the younger brother to complete a new poem within 7 steps. Otherwise, the younger brother would be killed. The poem written by the younger brother here expressed his deep frustration and disappointment about this cruelty. 竹斗燃豆萁，豆在釜中泣。本是同根生，相煎何太急。This poem immediately came to my mind in the context of academic restructuring since 2020 in the UK HE. Some colleagues had to choose to leave because they didn't agree with the rationale for academic restructuring, and then they didn't want to compete for the jobs with other colleagues who they had been working for many years. It was sense of justice and morality that propelled them to leave rather than stay. But the neoliberal machine is still running. This is what I said in 2023. Has HE lost a long-term vision in relation to market-driven orientation, narrow focus on teaching and research, neglect of pedagogical heritage, and educational lack of space for interrogating fundamental issues in education, and constant struggles for democracy in education. I also ask here, have academics got lost in current HE due to neoliberal requests? So Carr and Hartnett argue for a democratic vision of education in order to foster a wide public debate in which educational policies and proposals can be tested through critical dialogue to enable all stakeholders' participation. Similarly, Zeruk's 2020 argued for higher education for social change and regenerating a renewed sense of social and political agency as resistance to the neoliberal agendas through critical pedagogy as a powerful lens to fight for democracy. So these two photos I took at a moment of hope and resilience. I made some reflections at the time for the photos on the top. The beautiful blue sky with sunshine through some light. I appreciate this temporary peace without thinking about what's going on outside the window. The photo on the bottom, sitting on the bench in the park. I feel fresh air after intensive teaching and marking over the last couple of weeks. The fresh air offers me a little space for thinking positively about what is going on in HE institutions. Tang 2023 suggests that using a self-dialogic approach to mitigate neoliberal pressures in order to thrive in the competitive HE context. Tang and Corrado 2024 argued that creating a culture of genuine listening and providing space and time for open dialogues in HE are important to nurture, maintain, and sustain academic passion, integrity, and professionalism in HE pedagogy and research for the benefit of learners and all stakeholders in the challenging HE landscape. To conclude, I have used an ethnographic approach, auto-ethnographic approach, alongside a critical review of existing literature and research to analyze the tensions between research and teaching driven by the neoliberal regime and address its importance and address its impacts on academic identities in HE. I hope this creates dialogical space for scholars, researchers, and policymakers to further consider implications for HE pedagogy and research in order to fulfill HE institutions' social responsibilities in the 21st century. So these are the references. Yeah, thank you so much.